Since our ancestors first brought light into darkness, we have celebrated our families, remembering them through stories and putting them on our walls. Ancestors are all the family who came before us. Like the roots and the branches of a tree, our families go back in time, thousands of years, past our parents, past our grandparents, and even past our great-grandparents. Our ancestral roots reach all the way down to Mesoamerica, a land we now call Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. One tradition has survived thousands of years, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. Our ancestors understood life and death as a cycle. Life and death would dance round and round in a never-ending circle. We learned this lesson from plants around us, like the cempasúchil, whose bright orange and yellow petals were thought to be gifts from the sun. When they dried up and died, each of these 100 petals became seeds for the next generation to grow, reaching up for the sky and sun, growing bright and beautiful again. When we paint our calaveritas, we think of our family. We remember we are part of a cycle that has been going on for thousands of years, and we celebrate our ancestors and our cultura today.
Piali. Hey everybody, my name is Brian, and I'm going to be helping you paint your calaveritas today for Dia de los Muertos. Remember, this is a time for us to come together and celebrate our family y cultura. The calaveras should be an expression of yourself and your family. So they're all going to come out a little bit different, and this is a chance for us to express ourselves in choosing our colors and our designs to decorate our calaverita. Hey everyone, here's a way to paint your calavera using just a paper towel. Crumple up a paper towel into a little ball, dip it into whatever paint you're going to use, and slowly start stamping away onto the calavera. Before we get started painting our actual calavera, we're going to look at our brush to start. This brush, we're going to be using the bristles today, but also on the other side of the handle, the little tip there, we're going to be using to paint as well. So we're going to start with just the brush. We're going to get a little bit of water. Every time I paint, I always like to get a little bit of water, not only for myself to drink, but for my paint as well. I'm going to mix it together and make sure it's not too thin, not too thick, not so watery. But if I press lightly and push as I bring my brush across the paper, you'll see I'll get a thinner line that'll turn into a thicker line. So I'm going to get my brush and you see how I'm going to swirl it around with the water and the paint, just like this, so I get a nice fine tip to my brush. You see that? So I'm going to swirl it around. This is something you can try, but I like it because it gives me a nice fine point when I draw my thin lines. Having a little bit of water helps too. Now I'm going to get even more paint. I'm going to press down and drag that brush across, and you'll see I get a really thick dark line. And so that needs a little bit more paint in order to make a longer line. So I'm going to get a little bit more paint to fill that in, but you get a nice big bold line. And this is just a time for you guys to practice using that brush, which we don't always get to use. So I'm going to make a couple of short lines that are thick by pressing down hard, some thin lines by pressing lightly, and a few where I just dab the brush with my paint and water mixed together. Now is the time to practice your brush strokes. Have fun painting on your piece of paper or paper towel. In just a minute, we'll start a calavera. I also wanted to show you all how using the back of your paintbrush handle, if you dip it into the paint and tap lightly on your paper or your calavera, you can make small little dots. The lighter you press, the smaller the dot, and the harder you press, the bigger the dot. This will be a fun technique as we start designing our calavera. Whatever you guys want to try out, holding your brush different ways, making different marks, that's what your paper is going to be for. Alright guys, we're going to start painting our calavera now. I'm going to start getting some paint on my brush, a little bit of water. And you can use any color you want. I like using darker colors for the eyes and the nose. In this case, I'm going to use my blue. I'm going to work from the inside out so I can keep my lines, my outline pretty clean and nice and smooth. I'm going to work my way with the brush, going lightly. Oh, I got a little bit outside the lines, but that's okay because we can clean it up. And we can always paint over any areas that we don't like or that we feel is a little messy, but it's not about being perfect. It's about making it look beautiful and colorful and happy and celebrating and having fun. So I'm going to keep working my way around the edges, working from the inside out with my blue. Now that we finished the eyes, we're going to ignore the mouth that I've painted in the future and instead go back to the nose. I want to mix a little bit of blue and purple just on the side of my plate, my palette, and I'm going to use my brush, again pressing lightly, pressing down harder to create kind of a upside down heart or upside down V. I'm going to drag those along to make a little bit larger and then cross to make a triangle. Some people like using it to create just a little V for the nose. I'm going to do a little triangle, practice my shapes. I'm just going to fill that in, making it as even as I can. Doesn't need to be perfect, but I'm going to keep putting it down so I can look at it, make sure it's a nice sized nose, and that's going to disappear as we go back in time. I'm going to use just purple for the mouth. You see the line is already drawn in there for us. We just gotta trace it over with whatever color you choose. I'm gonna do the purple because I love the color purple, and I'm gonna trace this along using my brush, just the very tip of my brush to create a thin line, not pressing down too hard. And you see I always like to move my calavera around whatever I'm painting so I can paint downwards when I'm painting lines. If I drag down like I do with the teeth here, so I go from the top down, makes it easier for me to have a nice straight line. Hey everyone, we're going to move on to the next step now, which will be the petals around the eyes. I'm going to be using yellow, and this time I'm not going to use too much water. I'm going to get a little bit more paint so it's a little bit thicker on my brush, kind of like glue. And I'm going to get that paint on my brush. I'm going to put one on the very bottom right there, and then on the opposite side at the very top, I'm going to put another little dab of my brush, just like that. So I'm not going to drag my brush or make any lines. I'm just going to get paint and dab. Just put a little, touch the brush to the calavera, a little gently, just so you get a small little petal. And I'm gonna do on the top and bottom. And then I'm gonna do it on the sides as well, kind of in the middle of each of those lines. So if you follow that circle around the eyes, you find the middle. And I'm gonna do it on all four, on both eyes like that. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 petals on each eye. And then in between each of those, I have 1, 2, and put one in the middle. I'm gonna go all the way around the eye like that. So I look at my 2 petals, 1, 2, in the middle. I'll go all the way around. See, the paint is pretty thick. 1 and 2, and then in the middle. And then I'll do that to the other eye as well. And you'll see we'll get these to be looking like little petals in no time. Alright everybody, next we're going to mix a new color for our next design using yellow and just a little bit of red until we mix it up and get some orange. I'm going to always start with the yellow and add a little bit of red. This is how you want to mix orange. If you want to use a different color for this part, you can use a different color. If you're going to do a different design, you can do a different design. But if you're still following along, I'm going to mix some orange just like this, twisting my brush to get a nice fine tip. Because I'm going to press lightly first to create a little curvy line above the eye right there. And then as I press down more along the curvy line, it's going to make it a little bit bigger, just like that. I'll go over there and clean up a little bit, do 1, 2, and then I'll do one more. 3 curvy lines above my eye, and that's my design. I'm going to try making even on the other side, so I'm going to turn my calavera upside down so I can see what it looks like. Do 1, 2, and then clean it up a little bit. It's okay if it's not exactly perfect, because this is about having fun, celebrating with your family, making art, and seeing how you can turn a plain calavera into a beautiful piece of art with just a few colors. So I'm gonna come in, fix these up, and as soon as they look pretty good to me, I'm gonna put that down to dry for the next step. Next, we're going to be adding a couple more designs using the magenta here. From here on out, if you want to start mixing your own colors, creating your own designs for your calavera, now you can. We are able to take some time to practice beforehand on our piece of paper. And now I'm going to finish making my little calavera. You can follow along, copying my designs or creating your own. But remember to have fun and enjoy. I'll check in a little bit to show you some other steps with my calavera, but until then, have fun. For this next part, we're going to be adding in a cempasúchil flower. So I'm going to have some yellow ready on my brush, but I'm actually going to use these colors that I mixed before in the back of my brush to create the center of the cempasúchil. So I'm going to find a good area where I want to put the middle, somewhere right there, and I'll mark it on both sides, trying to find an even spot using the shapes and colors around me to help me figure out where to go. And then I'm going to start with my yellow paint. Kind of like we did with the petals for the eyes, we're going to do the same thing, the top and bottom petals and then the side petals next. Go in between with a brush, and you see I'm just kind of pressing my brush down, not pulling, making them too long. And I start with my yellow. I'm going to move on to a darker orange that I made, going in between each petal. And you can kind of keep going around like this with your different colors that you mix, so orange and yellow. They may not look exactly like mine, but I'm sure they will look beautiful as long as you're mixing in those yellows, some of the red, and I even put a little bit of purple to make it dark. So have fun with the cempasúchil. Remember, each cempasúchil is going to be different and unique and beautiful in its own way. And have fun adding in as many petals as you can.